It's a real burden living with diabetes when you're being set up to fail. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 24 years now. I'm first diagnosed at age 35. So it's a real challenge to live as a diabetic. There are 42 factors that impact your blood sugar as a type 1 diabetic. So things that impact your blood sugar, sometimes it's things that I could have control of, but often not. So things like sleep, dehydration, stress, exercise, hormones, the weather, altitude, caffeine, alcohol, medications, and the timing of insulin and food. And obviously food, but not just food, like what type of food, how much carbohydrate am I eating. The other real stress about being a diabetic is that almost every health condition has diabetes as its number one risk factor. So I used to feel like I was just living with a time bomb ticking. 1 minute I'd be feeling fine, the next minute I'd be shaky, really confused, I couldn't see very well, and I'd be slurring and appeared to be drunk. Also, every quarterly appointment for 20 years, visiting my endocrinologist was just humiliating. I've followed all the conventional dietary and medical advice, and I've done my best, and my best just is never good enough. So fortunately for me, my sister Anne heard from a friend managing type 1 diabetes with a low carb approach. I found Dr. Richard Bernstein's book of Diabetes Solutions, and I went to my endocrinologist and said, I've heard about this, what do you think? Can I give it a go? Yes, by all means, he said, but it won't be sustainable. So I was like, okay, I've been given the medical approval, I will give it a go. So within 3 months, I had some really significant general health improvements. I lost the 14 kilos that I'd slowly put on over the 20 years of being on insulin. I halved the amount of insulin I needed. All my inflammation disappeared. I'd had 2 frozen shoulders at once and ended up having surgery on one of them. I had terrible seborrheic dermatitis all over my face, and that all disappeared as well. But not only that, it was the general benefit of going low carb. My mental acuity improved, my concentration and memory improved, my mood improved. So it was a revelation that suddenly I had all this energy. So not only were there general health benefits, but huge benefits to my diabetes management. So Dr. Richard Bernstein's law of small numbers makes absolute sense. If you're eating small amounts of carbohydrate, you're taking small amounts of insulin, there's a smaller room for error, no bad hypos, and no over-correcting any hypos. So no more roller coaster blood sugars. And it makes sense to me that if I can't metabolise carbohydrate, why are the doctors telling me to make that the basis of every meal I eat and to eat lots of carbohydrate snacks as well? But you can see here, so these were a typical day. The 2 slides, the 2 photos on the left, a typical day before low carb of my blood sugars. So really the roller coaster, dangerously low, red low blood sugar, and too high blood sugar. Compared to the third photo, which is just what happened, 2 weeks later on the low carb. And this is my pathology report. So I was really looking forward to my doctors seeing this and congratulating me on the improvement I've made. Sadly, that didn't happen, but I can see here my 3 monthly average blood sugar, my hemoglobin A1C, doing everything I was told to do, was still not as low as I would like it to be, 6.8, and shortly after, 5 months later, there it was at 5.3, and that's been sustainable. So for 4 years now, my blood sugars have been in the non-diabetic range using half the amount of insulin. I've tried to not dwell on how angry I am that I wasn't given any of this information by any of my medical appointments over 20 years. I'm grateful to Troy Stapleton and his initial video that showed me what was possible and made me better understand that every 4 grams of carbohydrate that I eat is metabolised into the equivalent of a teaspoon of sugar. And now that I understand that 1 cup of rice has 10 teaspoons of sugar in it, and one banana, 6 teaspoons of sugar, I now understand why I was failing before. And I don't understand why this isn't standard training for all diabetics. Because without this knowledge, we're just being set up to fail.